Meetup.com.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they actually featured one of my videos, or they tried to get people to watch my video on freaking Robert Sapolsky and determinism and psychology.
Mm,
And we talked about that tonight, which is really cool.
pretty dope.
Yeah, it's cool to talk with people in the physical world.
I know, right? That's true.
I
I
don't get
know
to
when
do that
I took Brandon
enough.
to Michigan, he's like, "Man, it's so different seeing you in real life." I'm like, "I know, right? It's way different is better, probably. You get to read reactions live instead of fucking trying to read into them or whatever."
Yeah. Yeah, there's big parallels when it comes to the video chat format. I mean, you can see a lot with that, and you can hear a lot with the tone of voice and all, but it is a different setting than in real life.
For sure.
But it's also like way better in video chat than it is through
Typing.
messengers or Discord discussions.
Yep, I agree. That's why I try to tell people like when I'm arguing with them on Facebook, like it'd just be better if we just talked on Discord. Like it'd be just so much better than having to read and type, and then after I'm trying to read into what you're saying or not saying, and shit like that.
Yeah, there's levels of communication.
hmm Fucking body language
It's
is
hard
like
being a reminder.
80%.
Yeah, some people say 70%. It's hard to know. I mean, there are signals that let people know how to interpret what you're saying when you exemplify with your body. I think a lot of that it depends on the context of the conversation though.
Yeah, I think so too.
If you're in a if you're in a political debate, uh you can have that in any situation. It's much harder with text, but you can do that on video chat. But if you're trying to like flirt with someone at a party, that's a ton of body language involved in that.
Definitely.
Or
Oh
if you're
yeah.
trying to, if you're worried about offending someone when you're talking about something at a party, I guess. I don't know.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. Fucking when you're trying to anytime you're trying to socialize with people like for real, not just like your normal like how's the weather, but you're actually trying to get to know people and stuff. Body language, I feel like is very important because you got to
What?
body language, reading body language in different
What?
situations.
In certain situations, yeah.
So like because we were saying like
But
body
you just
language,
judge
he was
it.
saying 70 to 80% is whatever, right? When we're talking about like the difference between like body language versus talking like politics with somebody versus like trying to hit on them at a party versus like talking to someone at work, like they're all different.
Oh yeah.
Like like we're saying, he was saying like if you're trying to hit on somebody at a party, your body language is probably going to be way more important than talking to a dude at like work, about the weather or whatever, like
Oh yeah. Like the way that you do it, like you have to fucking like you can't just be uncomfortable and be unwilling to signal certain things, I guess, with fucking women and
Yep.
shit.
yeah,
You gotta be fucking perfect.
you gotta be
Gotta be
fucking.
You gotta be a robot. You gotta fucking make your emotions show. I'm just kidding. I'm just talking shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about
Yeah.
it like if like if you say the most meanest things but you look happy, it's not going to help your case, and vice versa. Like like your physical emotions need to match your verbal
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to talk to somebody or a girl or whatever kind of thing.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you talk to a girl like she's just one of the guys, like she's just not gonna fucking be
Right.
getting the vibe at all. Uh, don't matter how confident you are, like how suave you are in any other sense.
Yeah, communication's tricky, man. There's lots of layers, lots of nuance and context.
Fuck
We were
yeah.
talking about that at the meeting tonight. The ignorance of context is a big problem in the West. And we're pathologizing that with a lot of autism too, where they say that you have to have special interests or that you can't do anything but help but fixate on your special interests in a conversation. And that ignores the context of other people's interests and the the context and nuances of speech when you need to zoom out and look at the big picture of the third person view between you and the other person when you're speaking.
I saw an ADHD meme that you would have fucking hated earlier.
Really? You said
Yeah.
it?
So, I was going to, but I can find it actually. I'll go fucking search this bitch.
Mhm.
Dude, there's so many. There's so many
You've probably already seen it.
one-sided memes.
Yeah, yep, here it is. Right here, first one. I'm just gonna.
There's so many
I'll
one-sided
send it to
memes.
you.
Of course.
I'll
Or like
post it in
one.
the put it in the memes and bullshit.
Oh,
What's happening, brother?
Ayo.
Can you hear the game? Do I need to
No.
turn that down?
I can't hear it, so you're good.
good.
Okay, so it's just coming through the headphones for you. All
I'll
right,
turn on
cool.
my camera so you can see my pretty face. Yeah, dude, I saw this meme. That's exactly what I'm talking about, man.
Where's
And
the meme?
now I want to say that
Where'd you post it,
And I
Brandon?
gotta mix
it's
it.
here.
It's in memes and bullshit.
Okay, hold on.
Down,
you, yep.
bar down.
Bron.
Yeah, it is ADHD is a medical
one sec, I gotta
condition. ADHD is a chemical imbalance. ADHD is a big deal.
Excellent.
It's a battle for self-confidence. It's a fight to maintain focus. It is a war between the brain and the body. ADHD is real.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So
It is
That one is
real,
pretty
but I don't
bad.
know
I mean,
how-
it's
how big of
real,
a
but
deal
it's
it-
like
how important it is. I don't, or like how big of an
it's
issue.
not a war between the brain and the body. I mean, this is exactly what you would see when you don't teach people mindfulness. And you can say that it
Yeah.
sounds really privileged and it sounds really insensitive, but when I see ADHD and the descriptions and criteria for ADHD, it exactly parallels with what the Buddhists were calling monkey mind. But you can't call it monkey mind either because that sounds super insensitive. So the word here that we used, or the words that we used to describe it, are really tricky. I mean, so the untamed mind will be beholden to the neurochemistry that it operates on. Until you learn how to train it, until you learn mindfulness, you're going to be distracted. It is evolutionary psychology as well, and that's very much ignored in Western psychology now, it seems. Except for at the higher universities that are legacy institutions like Stanford and Harvard, where they still fund evolutionary research and theory. You see descriptions of ADHD as the hunter-gatherer instinct to be distracted by a shaking bush. So, of course, that's natural. Of course, that's a very natural thing, and that means that we have very natural ways of understanding that and trying to mitigate that. And this is what you see with the thousands of years of dedicated mindfulness and meditation, Vipassana meditation in particular. And
I mean, clearly pressure doesn't work, right? Just straight pressure, raw pressure. Like, stop fucking up. You do the thing right. You know, it's like,
yeah,
well, I always like that one quote in it's actually like an exchange in that one movie, The Love Guru. Pressure makes or creates rubble or whatever, and then the like mom or whatever was like, but also diamonds, you know. So it's like a weird line. You know, when is pressure good? When is it bad? When does it make us fall apart? When does it
Everybody's
crystallize
different.
us into a stronger
Yeah.
entity? I don't know
everybody
if
does
it's like
something different.
is it a personal thing or is it a situational thing, like an emotional thing? Like I think it has more
Both.
to do with
It's nature and nurture, I think.
Yeah,
do
it's
with,
definitely both.
well, right, but
Because
It's,
like
deterministic.
Just
I have
society.
buddies who are scared of
Money.
heights. I have buddies who are scared of heights, but they work at a nuclear plant where they had to walk, across beams that are like 500 feet high. So now they're not scared of heights because they've dealt with them more. So it's one of those like that's the nature part, but also he has a natural sense of just being scared of it. So he had to overcome that, or in order to make it natural to him, kind of thing. So.
Mhm.
Pulls himself up by his bootstraps and that whole narrative. Yeah, it does seem that the more situations you put yourself in, the more you find your boundaries, but also you transcend your boundaries.
Yep.
And I've had over 20 different occupations in my time, and I've really pushed my distractibility or my diagnosis of ADHD to its absolute limits, as well as my central language processing disorder or disordered states of language processing and auditory processing. And having conversations in multiple formats like this one here, that's also very much helped me to transcend a lot of the preconceived notions that I had about my diagnostics.
Yeah.
It's
Because
very
you find out
unfortunate
you're
that people
you're
are
not
falling
alone. Is that why, or is it like you find out more information about the diagnosis, or
the brain. I think the brain trains itself in multiple situations, and the more of those situations, the more you recognize context, the more you expand past the limitations that you once had. So you can go to the extreme of this and start questioning your limiting beliefs, like they talk about in CBT, where you see a lot of inherent ableism, but also the incredibly invaluable concept of overcoming and transcendence and headstrong, forthright attitudes, forward leaning into life, a forward center of mass approach to all of life's challenges, and a confidence and excitement in your ability to become better versions of yourself progressively as you enter the state of becoming as you go through life. Whereas you could enter this fixed mindset that says, I have this personality, I have this disorder, I must forever battle between my brain. It is a war between the brain and the body, like this says here. And that's kind of the conception that we're portraying in deterministic conceptions of the West.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. We're figuring it out, though.
Well, it's just like both sides need to have fucking well, like as far as like the societal sides, you know, like the one like power structures of like, you know, the bosses and shit that will say like stop making excuses, you know, and the fucking side that's like stop being an asshole.
Dude, there's a meme that I have for that too. I saved it in my making excuses folder. Here, I dropped this right in the chat.
Is it the one about excuses or explanations or?
There's a few of those. This says, can a neurotypical person
Yeah.
please explain their definition of a
Yeah.
reason versus an excuse? Because I am genuinely confused. When asked, why did you do it this way? I'm going to explain
Yeah.
my process to you because you asked. When I start talking to you, you say, I don't want your excuses. Okay, so that's...
Yeah, that's such a weird
Ultimately-
mindset to me.
I
Yeah.
know, man. But, I mean, that's what
Why do I
you're
have to
expected.
explain my work when I'm smarter than you? Why don't you show me how I got this done, and then I'll critique you.
You know,
Right.
the person asking.
I mean, there's... so bosses have superiority complexes.
Here, you try
that's
this
big, but-
impossible thing and tell me how easy it is. Okay,
Right.
now let me critique you with the bad breath.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, bosses have a way that they want things to be done, and there's also superiority complexes that play into that.
I
But
just wanted
there's
to
also a
chime in a little
conception-
bit. I'm pretty much watching the Lakers game. I'm gonna let you guys keep talking, but I'm gonna mute my mic.
You're cool,
You're all
dude.
good, brother.
You're cool.
I'll chime back
You're
in. No, I know, but I'm taking like a 10 or 15 anyway, so
I
I'll
feel
be
ya.
back.
You let me know
But-
how the
Word.
Lakers.
I had
are.
to figure. I had to figure out the controls and stuff. I didn't even know what deafen meant, but now we're gonna deafen myself, and I'll be back and I'll be
Well, the
back.
thing-
at
okay,
10. I'll tell you
so-
how the Lakers are doing when I,
I
get
got you,
back.
brother. Thank you.
Okay. I was just thinking, like people that will instead of reflect, you know, use labels to just be like, all right, that person's just an asshole, you know, like how do you get those people to actually be like, you know what, maybe I'm the asshole instead of, you know, fucking platitudes
Nobody does
like,
that
oh, you
because,
see,
like-
you be an asshole. You
Well,
be
'cause
an
think about it like
asshole,
this.
You be an asshole
Do you
all
think-
days, you're the asshole.
Do you think Hitler thought he was evil?
Well, they need to be depressed enough. They need to be depressed enough to be like, well, shit, what do I have to do to make people want to be around me? You know.
Oh,
Like,
so you're
I
talking about
think
like a
that's
rock
kind of-
bottom situation
Oh,
kind of
that's
thing?
how you-
Yeah, like
Yeah,
people
that's
have
rock
to
bottom.
people have to
Yeah.
go through that process, or otherwise,
Yeah,
like they have to.
everyone needs some kind of struggle in
Some
their life.
kind of fucking anvil needs a drop on their head, you know, to be like, all right, dude, it's got to be me. It can't just be everybody, you know. Like I don't know what it takes other than that, or
I
even
do
what
hope that's not
process
true.
occurs. Oh, like that.
I think that's the case. I was working on that as a theory like about a year and a half ago, and I think there's a lot of utility in thinking that way because this is what you see with psychedelic breakthroughs. So there's major paradigm shift moments that the brain can hit as it crystallizes and rigidifies itself into its conception of the world and how to navigate the external world and how to identify and participate in it. We kind of fall into these modes of operation that are very fixed, and then you have where you hit rock bottom, you become an alcoholic or something, and then you hit a moment where you say, okay, I have to stop this, and then that's when you take the action. That's when determinism is less deterministic and free will starts to finally show up, and your brain's like, all right, we got to make a change, team. This is not going well. the 86 billion neurons in your brain are like, all right, we gotta stop this. And then you have types of social feedback that can also be like that, where you have enough instances of people saying, hey, you need to change this. You're being ridiculous. It is none of us that is the problem here. You are the problem. And then you have psychedelic breakthroughs that kind of allow multiple regions of the brain to talk to each other that don't normally talk to each other, which is very similar to what you see in those instances where the rigid conception of the self is finally broken, but it's done through much gentler means than a rock bottom experience like that. And I mean that makes sense that the brain would work that way, but I also think that this
Well, I
is
was
kind of the
just saying
thing with
it's one
therapy
way,
is the therapist
yeah.
is supposed to teach you those skills, and then it's up to you to put that into action. But that's why it's so
That-
hard.
See,
Is
like what
because
you did say is why it's so good and necessary to be fucking honest all the fucking time, because you actually do help these fucking people that are actually harming themselves without knowing it. You know, like you clue them in into, you know, you at least give them a piece of fucking information to go by, you know, that lets them know, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're kind of like abnormally, like you're an abnormal amount of asshole. Like you're not like a little bit of an asshole, you're just a straight up asshole, and you don't know what the fuck's going on. You don't even realize what the fuck you're doing. But yeah.
But I have
then
narcissistic
look at
personality disorder. I can't help it.
exactly. And then you
Yeah.
get in a situation with like couples that are, you know, pretty high in narcissism, like some of my family members, and you know, they fucking reify each other's fucking justify and, you know, each other's narcissism, you know, like, no, it's just them, you know, like it's just yeah.
Yeah, that's why we gotta be careful with labels too. I mean, that's one of the worst ones. Oh, here's a good example. This other meme I just shared right now. This is probably what you would see with somebody that
You think
identifies.
narcissism is a bad label? You don't think that clues
Absolutely.
people in?
I think that's one of the most harmful labels that we've seen in psychology.
You don't think that makes
Okay.
people more reflective? Or you think it just makes people more entrenched?
I think that's what we're seeing now, at least. A couple of decades ago, it was more agency
like-
oriented. But
So, like, asshole would be a point of pride. That's made a point of pride.
yes,
And narcissist
that is
is a
seen on
little
both
bit of that's like a thing you don't want fucking people to be around for. Like, that's not good for their health long term. But
you see it on the left and the right. So the CEO will justify being an asshole to his employees because that's what's necessary to get the job done, and that aligns with his diagnosis of narcissism. Look at this meme. This is one of the most depressing ones I've seen. It's in the chat here.
Yep.
I wonder how many people would show up for my funeral knowing that my mental disorders would probably prevent me from showing up for theirs. What?
Because of the shame.
How do you
Like,
come to a type of reasoning? Like, how do you think that way? Because they think that they can't be in a situation where it's socially awkward and they'll feel a certain type of way. They'll feel very depressed being in a freaking funeral.
you know,
And it's going to be overwhelming, and so their mental disorders will prevent them from doing that, or they have social anxiety. They have quote unquote social anxiety that prevents them from going to express their feelings and showing respect to a loved one. They're defaulting to this. I mean, if there's ever something that we should consider as natural and very much inborn and genetic towards all humans, is being able to get together and go to a funeral to express love for a lost loved one. But this type of reasoning has gone to this extent, where this individual thinks that they're just. I mean, look at the wording here. I don't really have to say any more on that. You know what I mean? I wonder how many people would show up for my funeral and knowing that I wouldn't do the same for them because of this way of thinking, or because of this mental
then-
disorder.
you see, though, all right. See, here's another thing: is they're not getting to the specifics of their anxiety, right? And being like, so that people can say like, no, nobody really gives a shit about that. Like, you gotta fucking, you know, get out of your head. You gotta stop thinking this unrealistic shit, because none of us think what you think we think. You know, like, I do think like right there, yeah, like you're. Like, that is a point where the label or the diagnosis, you know, prevents further exploration, further fucking reflection. The less we reflect,
You're a
the less we
narcissist.
understand.
I mean, if they identify as a narcissist or they have
Oh.
narcissism personality disorder,
Well,
then they're going to
mental
put
social
themselves
anxiety.
before other people. They're going to put themselves before showing respect. for
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, I get that, you know, because it gives them an excuse. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
It's very unfortunate.
What like? Why don't we have like a like? It's so weird. The way that I've always approached mental health is like, oh, you fucking you have these beliefs that are self-damaging and self-limiting. So figure out why you have these beliefs and like figure out what contradicts these beliefs, right? That's always been a thing to me. That's always been my way of understanding it. It's so
That's
fucking weird that
solution-focused mindset. That's the
I've always had that.
solution-focused
So,
mindset. See, but you're privileged in that way. You could say that you're privileged to think that way from the determinism perspective. So, you're talking about limiting beliefs. I had to learn limiting beliefs from taking CBT. I had to learn the term limiting beliefs to start catching my own limiting beliefs. Before then, I was just running on autopilot. So I do think that there are theories here
yeah.
to be explored with evolutionary psychology again. I think there were the shamans, and there were the wise leaders, or they were just the people that had a general, more problem-solving attitude genetically embedded in them, and then there were the people that leaned on those members of the tribe because that's more genetically efficient. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like our genes want to conserve resources and they want to conserve energy and metabolic efficiency. So it makes sense that some people would have a more deterministic outlook, I guess you could say, or just less free will and less self-awareness, less introspective capacities naturally than others, and they'd have to be taught by the wise shamans, which are today's therapists or psychotherapists.
Psychoanalysis, yeah.
God, I wish we had that fucking dude. Like, so with the AI, like I see some sort of like sorting hat type situation coming out, of being like, even though we do kind of have that in the way of like guidance counselors and shit, but like when kids are growing up, like they need to have some sort of sense of like direction based on their like personality type or whatever. I don't know. Like,
Well, the
we
thing
need
is,
more like
we're different. We're all different, so it's hard to
direction.
teach. You have
More
a
like-
teacher or whatever teaching 30 kids that are all different the same way. That's probably the biggest problem. Like with that kind of
Okay,
stuff.
but
We
you
need
always
more
say that.
individ-
You always say like we're just different, but
We are
we're not,
different.
we have the same.
No, we don't.
But like in what ways? So that's the point,
Culture.
though. In what ways are we different?
Culture.
In what? Okay. In
Do
what
you,
ways?
are you
does
going to tell?
culture
Are you
give
going to
us
tell
some-
me that an American in
just saying,
Minnesota is going to be the same as
you
a South
have
African?
an assumptive point of view regarding the ways that we differ. Like,
Well, because-
I understand that there's like
Well, because until you get
paradigmatic
a unified
fucking
way of
continuum-based
living, you're
spectrum-based
going to have different.
differences, but.
I tell you the same analogy. There's a car accident.
I know a dude that's very, very similar to you.
And
I
I
know a
understand,
dude that's
but
very
there's
similar
a
to you,
car
and that
accident in front of you.
If
There's
you were
three different
around him,
answers.
you would hate it. You would hate it because he's just like you.
Of course, I get that.
People are very
Oh,
similar in ways that we don't understand. That we don't. Fucking,
Yeah, but how about this? But like I told you,
like,
there's
just because we assume
there's probably 15 to 20
different.
people like you in this whole world, like exactly like you,
right.
like looks,
Well, I don't know,
mannerisms,
well,
everything.
exactly.
Yeah, but on an eight,
Well, I
we're
don't know
talking about
that
learning.
many, but
So, different learning styles exist in different education systems. We talk about it as tactile kinesthetic or hands-on learning. Like I have to solve things with puzzles and draw on a piece of paper and all that. And then you have visual and auditory. But there's also other models that get at this. I mean, I'm more autodidact learning. I much prefer to listen to a lecture that I can hit pause on, or read a book that I can go back and review, where I don't have to interrupt the teacher to have them say like, what did you say, or can you repeat that again, or like, let me make sure I'm understanding it this way. And then you have a very brand new way of learning, which is with AI, where I can actually essentially talk with an amalgamation of a professor or
Yeah.
all of the professors on a particular topic and say, okay, what is the grand amalgamation of all human knowledge on this perspective? Which that is huge, by the way. That is a radical paradigm shift in the way
Yeah.
that we learn and teach.
people don't.
And the
People got
tutors-
take advantage. That's why I keep fucking telling Wally and shit. Like fucking AI's good. AI's fucking good.
I just don't use it.
It's the
Bro.
good guys.
I
It's
get
great
it.
for learning, but also it creates convenience problems.
That and I've
yeah.
honestly I've seen them be wrong too, because all they do is just read, like, let's say they read the top 10 articles of whatever topic.
It can be
and they,
wrong.
And they,
Internet can be wrong too.
But if you take one
Nothing's
AI,
perfect.
like I'm saying, let's say you trust like the Google's AI answer for everything, you're probably not going to be right more times than not. I would still rather read fucking 5-6 articles on the topic and look for the crossovers.
They'll give you
and-
sources.
Sometimes, yeah.
They give you sources, dude.
I know, but I've
Maybe sometimes they
I've-
give you sources.
I know, but
Ask for sources, or
I've checked for those
the
sources.
AI
and they
will
shit.
give you sources flat out.
Oh yeah.
It will give you hella sources. I've literally gotten
You gotta
100
prompt
sources
them right.
on one fucking conversation with, or one fucking thing I've put into Perplexity. It's giving me like 100 sources.
Perplexity is better about that than ChatGPT. Although all the LLMs are doing that now, they'll give at least 3 to 5 sources. The way I use them is to just give me a perspective on this, and give me usually it's philosophy. So I'll ask, let me get all the perspectives from all the philosophers that think this way on this particular topic, and then what are the most popular and stringent arguments against that from other philosophers, and then list those philosophers, and then give me their perspectives, and then do like a back and forth kind of debate. But also you can just ask, all right, give me perspectives on this, and then give me 10 sources. You can ask for as many sources as you want, and then just say, all right, give me contradictory analysis on that, and then give me all the sources. And you can also do in-depth meta-analysis with these systems, where you can get them to search and read the articles in full depth, and then do a statistical analysis on the inaccuracies. This is what the Society Library is doing, societylibrary.org, I think, where they're trying to apply AI to political stats analysis. It's hard to keep up with. It's hard to know all the facts, especially the more complex and abstract the concept. You're still only pulling from so many articles and so many perspectives on that. But that's still better than what you're seeing in mainstream media, or what you're seeing in
For sure.
the majority.
My
of people.
point, when we say like everybody's different, it's like in what ways? You know what I mean? Like we're all the same animal. Like
Yes, but even how
what
about this?
specific ways do we differ? What
Culture.
specific ways do we differ? Otherwise, it's a vacuous thing
Culture.
to say.
Culture.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Your
You're just
upbringing.
saying culture. You're just
You're
saying
not- you're not-
what
we're
does
not the
that?
same
What does that
culture.
mean?
I'll tell
Okay,
you
what differences does that provide?
what.
You know what I'm saying? But you're
upbringing-
saying everybody's different. But
Yeah.
we all live in the same culture.
we don't.
We all live in the same culture. I'm not trying to yell.
No, I know.
I'm just trying to get my point across.
I got you.
We all live in the same well, there's mini culture, right? But why am I not the same exact dude as my brother? You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Why is that?
There's
'Cause your
it's-
brain
it's-
is
There's-
different.
There's lots of levels.
Exactly, because that's why I always say you can see 3 people.
In
see
what ways is my brain different? See, we keep going around. It's like an infinite
What
regress.
ways is your
This
brain
is-
different? I
it's
bet you don't
circular.
have the same biological everything as your brother. You're not. You're not
Well,
even.
okay. What ways what cognitive differences are manifested through my brain specifically, or in emotional differences? You know what I mean? So like when we assume everybody's just different, it's a vacuous statement that isn't clear at all. It's just an assumption. It's completely an assumption.
Well,
Like
I would-
people are different,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that everybody's different, like from each other.
It's how
like,
it's how you're
necessarily.
different. Yeah, that's a good point. And you can't just. I mean, there's lots of ways to look at it.
This is
There's
where
different
like
brain styles, there's different brain styles.
I
but they're all,
think
you
this
have to find
statement,
correlation.
everybody's different, is a reason for our subjective miasma. I like to call it.
How about this, dude?
Like,
Your
that's
next
why
door,
we-
the next
that's
door
why we don't-
neighbor,
that's
and
why we
you
don't
are not even
take
the
the
same.
perspective of other people.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
Well, of course not.
well, why? Why aren't you the same?
Well, I don't
This is
know.
the-
Like,
this is the
I got a
individual.
different personality type. You know, I
Yep.
have different cognitive
And different
tendencies.
upbringing,
I've
so
got
you guys have different cultures.
different aesthetic fucking resonances.
For sure.
Well, just to say culture
Is broad.
is just it's a very vague term.
It is broad.
Yeah, it's
I could say you guys had different mothers, which means they had different upbringings. You guys had different fathers, or maybe not a father, or whatever. So different upbringing. You're gonna one person might have been religious, one person might not have. That's a different thing, or one person. Yeah,
well, there's a lot of things that pitch in, but like the what is the relevance for this statement that everybody's different? You know what I mean?
because
Like,
you're never gonna
where
unite
does-
everybody.
how does that
in
practically
one
apply?
thought. It's impossible unless you have hive mind.
You just say that though. You don't.
But-
You just say that. You're
Because-
just. It's literally.
because I got-
You're
I
literally
got
just being
thousands of years of
dismissive
history
without
to
even
prove it.
investigating.
I would
Okay,
say
but
I would say
Yeah,
that
you're
philo-
right.
okay, I've made.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna get pissed off. All right.
That's why I get
because
pissed off.
Here's the thing. I wrote earlier, like, okay, so irrational things are human nature, but so are wise things. So is wisdom. So is thinking. So is correcting ourselves. You know what I mean? And there is
Why?
a
Why is that
finite set
irrational?
of propositions. No, it is because it's fucking things like things that are emotional and that are unwise that lead toward like lack of societal
I'm talking
harmony,
about the
like
wise people.
disharmony,
You
that
said wise
is
people
bad.
are and logical people are. I'm asking about them people. Why were the
No,
logical
no,
people?
no. I'm saying that I'm saying no. That's not what I'm saying. I'm
Okay.
saying that wise is, or wisdom. God damn it, you fucked me up.
I'm sorry. You said something. I had to ask a question.
All right. Basically, I think even if there are infinite degrees of gradation between different people,
Mm-hmm.
there's still a finite set of wisdom, like a finite set of propositions that are, defined as wisdom that can be applied to that potentially infinite set of people.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a finite set of situations we can find ourselves in.
True.
So
I
that
do think
that
there
that
are
is how we
categories.
unite. That is how we unite. Because
Yeah, we gotta
morality,
find key lines.
like morality, as far as like what's objective, transjective, intersubjective, whatever, that is just there so everybody can achieve what they want to achieve without fucking with everybody else's achievements. It's. I don't think it's that hard. It's just
Ooh.
Here,
education,
look at this
philosophy.
one. So this is the way that we all differ, and the ways that we're also similar. And of course, this is a hugely complex thing. But this is called Yuri Bronfenbrenner's bioecological systems model. This came out in the 80s. This is a. Can y'all see this?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, good.
So this model here, look at this. I use this in a lot of my work with clients and on videos on YouTube. So here we have in the center, and that is made up of the neural and cognitive aspects of that, which can be quite deterministic, but not wholly deterministic.
Mm-hmm.
Reward processing systems, that one I added to this. Diet, sleep, and exercise, the psychological aspects, and the individual's conception of their current identity, and their income, and their genetic predispositions. And then in the mesosystem, you have their living quarters, their peers, added a couple more here, their work, their meaning and purpose. This one I added because of John
Streetwalkability.
Vervaeke's Yeah, so this one's more aimed towards ecological and social welfare. There's a lot of versions of this model, but yeah, street walkability, that's your neighborhood, your neighbors that you can have good access to, what quality of neighbors there are, what quality of family you have,
Mm-hmm.
your light exposure that you have, teachers and mentors, religious organizations, self-awareness practices, and all that. And then and it's also your access to that
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
how much mindfulness you can play over
I'm gonna
that. And then out
cut
here
you
you
off
have
real quick.
culture.
And say
And then
if we
macro
say
systems,
something's
and-
impossible, we make it impossible because we don't fucking try. We don't try to fix it. We don't try to come up with a solution. And that what is morality? But an attempt thus far, like because we haven't gone far enough to make everybody fucking get along. Like and what justifies these things as moral or like objectively moral is in that it applies to everybody. The only reason why objective
Mhm.
morality seems not to be objective is because we have difference of privilege in class. So I honestly do bring class into my analysis of everything as like first.
Do you think
like
that there is going to
it's
be objective
like I'm
morality?
basically in a sense a Marxist. Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely.
I do not.
Absolutely, I do think that.
I do not.
I 100% think that. And if you
We
don't
have to
think
tr- we
it,
have to
if you don't
strive for that.
try,
There are
then we don't
virtues,
fucking
yeah.
do it.
Yeah, but
I mean,
that's
Plato
that's
and-
the same thing. That's the same thing that religious folks say, right?
But you can prove this shit with logic. You can prove like you and you can
It is
fucking
more provable,
establish
yes.
it with like therapy and shit.
Yeah, I mean, some of it might be more.
That's how we
provable,
arrive at it.
But
Yeah, it's pragmatic. Like our morality is just pragmatic. And the only reason why it isn't pragmatic for everybody is because not everybody has the same opportunities to start with. Like not
yeah, that's the culture. That's what I'm saying.
everybody
so
has
the
the
guy
same
in
level of
Uganda
privilege.
that's
Like,
fucking
there's
starving
no
his face
reason-
off, he's not gonna have the same morality as a guy that lives in fucking DC or fucking
Right.
bumfuck nowhere. Wisconsin.
But the reason why our world is so fucked right now is because we keep fucking making it so not everybody has the same amount of like privilege. Like
per se, yeah.
we keep fucking kicking that can down the
Well,
road
yeah,
of like
I don't think-
like
I
the
mean-
rich people worked for what they got and all this stupid bullshit. Like they deserve what they got. Like no, they were lucky.
Some of them. I mean, the guy
Either
that invented it,
either
maybe, but-
psychologically or greedy. That's the or fucking material wise.
yeah, I mean,
So
Like I said,
Yeah,
I don't even
there's
care.
lots of
Be
levels
rich,
to this.
just don't be overly rich. That's always what I preface.
yeah. I mean,
Like
to
people can have
start,
money,
at
that's
least, I don't
fine.
know.
But
Well,
it's
they're
about
not all bad, no, but like they do provide a good function for society,
Mm-hmm.
obviously.
There's
But how
wealthy
much
people who
is that
can-
worth? How much is
no,
an
yeah. The real
administrative? How
question
much
is
is administrative work worth?
that, or like I said, the real question is
Or like
how much should a person be worth
invest?
every year? Like I said,
Anyway,
we have a minimum wage in
yeah,
America. Why have we never thought about having a maximum wage, like $50
it's.
million or
I
something?
feel
You
like
know, like
the fact that we think all this money is like required to do this work kind of shows like it tells to me like, oh, it's not rewarding work in itself. But I think that's bullshit. I think that there's tons of people that would love to be in one of these like high powered fucking, high speed or whatever fucking positions as like a CEO of like a Walmart or whatever the fuck,
maybe
or like a tech company, and
sometimes some people can't
they would
handle it though.
enjoy it.
Some people would, but some people
Oh yeah,
wouldn't.
that's what I mean. People would enjoy it, and like, there's probably some guy that's like, give me $100,000 a year, I'll fucking run this company, and I'll fucking
Mm-hmm.
shit on this motherfucker that's been around it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Don't get mad at me for getting fucking
Yeah,
fired
I don't
up.
get
I
mad at
gotta let
nobody.
myself get fired up.
You don't.
I
Dude,
know. I know.
get mad.
You know I
bro.
love you, no matter what the fuck you say,
Yeah,
man.
dude, I don't give a
Hey
fuck.
man, you
I know.
have
I have
the-
trouble with
you
it.
have
I have
the
trouble.
I
With
know,
it.
dude. Like I said, with
You
me,
have
you
the
don't gotta
mindfulness
worry.
and willpower to be aware.
Hmm?
All that. You have the mindfulness and willpower to control yourself. So
Yeah, I just gotta raise my
that's
voice. I
awesome.
gotta let myself fucking get out there. I gotta. Yeah.
Yeah, no judgment.
Dude, I don't.
Yeah.
I
Like I
mean,
said,
these are all super nuanced.
in general, I love when people
Yeah.
push back on my thoughts. I don't get like I don't, instead of getting butthurt about it, I embrace it.
If I don't say anything, it makes me doubt myself, basically. So.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I get it.
But that's a choice.
That's a choice.
That's an attitude that you're taking on.
Attitude.
It's also there's always choice. You can attribute choice to so much. This is what I talked about at the meeting earlier today in Chattanooga. The conservative ideology is based in the unassailable and unquestionable ability to choose and to have free will, and the liberal is more based in determinism and the struggle to have free will, a struggle to rise above. That they need the Maslow's hierarchy of needs fulfilled for them by the quote nanny state,
Yeah.
by the government to step in and provide social welfare so that people can at least have the bottom tiers of Maslow's hierarchy provided for them: food, shelter,
Yeah.
a good restroom, clean water, or clean access to good food, and education and healthcare. And then they can start building up. We talked about this before, where they did that experiment in Chicago where they gave a lot of money to people, and that showed that people can make better businesses for themselves.
I
They don't
think
become
we're-
addicted and all
okay.
that.
So we're at a point kind of where like our culture's at a point where like we're like higher on the hierarchy of needs is like quote unquote more normal or whatever, right? Like one feels like a loser if they're not like excelling in a sense, or like
Just comparison based, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's like social comparison.
I
But you
no,
can-
but
again,
I
that's
would
free
of
will,
course,
you can't-
but there's a reason for the social comparison, right? Because
Yeah.
we want to fit in with people that are like-minded with us and to us
Part
and
of
shit,
it,
right?
yeah.
So like myself, like
Yeah.
There's a
I've
personal
been in
pressure and a
situations
social
where I
pressure.
see all these chicks on like Tinder or whatnot, like, oh, I got these hobbies, I do this and that, I got this professional career, and then I look at myself, well, not right now, like, but
in
in the
general.
past, I'd look at myself and be like, well, this chick wouldn't fucking like me, like, you know what I mean? And so it's just
Yeah, a
There-
limiting
there's-
beliefs.
there's that. Well, I'm just saying, like, other people will see that same exact thing because we're now at a point where we can reach higher on the hierarchy of needs because people are reflecting and be like, you know what? I'm not gonna fucking let or wait until somebody tells me like I have the legitimacy to pursue this thing. I'm just gonna do it because life is short and I'm gonna fucking have the
Yeah.
the greatest time I possibly can. So I do think like there's something of like an average movement higher on the hierarchy of needs, and then that makes people that are lower on the hierarchy of needs want to pursue those things before they have the lower parts totally secured.
Oh yeah, I see.
And
Yeah,
that
'cause the
I think plays
comparison
a
of
lot of
the-
shit.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The
Thank you there, bro.
people will see
I
the.
got that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I should take a note of that. All right, I'm gonna steal that idea, throwing it into the diagnostic default book. Just kidding. I'll make it into. So I mean, social comparison is a huge problem. There's a book called The Status Game, came out not long ago, that examines how status plays a huge role in our decision making. So you're saying that people, they hold themselves to the standards of those who are at the top of Maslow's hierarchy.
Or like toward the high, like
Oh.
it depends on who they're like in contact with or like perceiving through various media, right?
I think
real
everybody.
life
I think
or-
that everybody feels like they can be a billionaire. That's why they bootlick for them. Like that's why they don't talk shit about it,
Right.
because they feel like I could potentially be that person. I don't want to lose what I earned or what like that thought
It's
process.
like it's like a 47-year-old fucking Walmart
Sure, but guess what? They
worker.
still think it though. The thought process, they still believe.
Right.
How about like how many people play the
What's
fucking
like-
how many people play the Mega
Yeah.
Millions and shit, thinking they're gonna win the $1 billion thing and become a billionaire?
Yeah.
Like people do this shit every day, and that thought process is not good.
And
though.
why do people want to do that? So they can get higher on the hierarchy of needs.
Part
so
of
they
it-
can fucking
Part of it is that
either some.
I would say again,
emotional
everybody's
achievement,
different.
personal
So
achievement,
there's,
or
I feel like an old
impressing
person would
people,
want to
or-
fucking leave a legacy for their kids and their grandkids. Like everyone's now a person
Yeah,
like that's
yeah.
22, 23. Yeah, they want to fucking they want the bitches
I was
and
just
the,
talking
everything,
about what was relative
in the
relevant.
in the society shit. Yeah. So again, it comes down to everyone's a little bit slightly different. Like the reasoning why you want a bunch of money or whatever you fucking
Right.
call it.
All our motives or like our motives toward a thing are like multiply realizable or whatever. I like to say.
Yeah,
that. Well,
multifaceted
say
or whatever
like
the fuck
that.
I want to call it.
Or-
yeah.
Multiple realizability is just like it was a term that was used in Dennett's Consciousness Explained book, but
Right.
say
That is.
behaviors are multiply realizable in that they can come across through different minds, different processes, different motives.
Mhm.
So the thing about Maslow's hierarchy is that he didn't stop at the top, which is self-actualization. He continued the hierarchy into self-transcendence and community actualization. But the Western conception of Maslow's hierarchy is that it's all about the self, and then you have to reach all these levels, and then it's about you. You're at the top of a pyramid. But Maslow didn't really use pyramids. He had a model or two that were based on a pyramid, but it looked more like a blend. Here, I got it right here.
It- So
I'll
what
show
was
you
his
this.
school of psychology? Was he humanism or
Who? Maslow?
I don't know. He was kind of his own thing. Look, this is a more relevant and accurate portrayal of Maslow's actual hierarchy. Is the so you see physiological needs, they still less of a degree as you reach the self-actualization here in the red. It's nuanced.
No,
Yeah, just the
it's like anything, yeah.
psychology.
Dude, humans are nuanced as fuck, dude. That's what I'm saying. That's why I can
Yeah.
never truly believe that we're all the same mind or whatever, because unless we have
I don't mean that we're the same, but like we have the same mechanisms, same like levers.
We
and
have to
same-
find. I know what you're
not,
saying.
not
Brandon.
even
we talk
we're-
about
that's not even true, because
Yeah,
you have people
fine.
with you have people with actual mental disorder, like full retardation or whatever. You have people born with like arms or fingers.
yeah,
or something.
but
So like
they're
even
not
then,
relevant when it comes to morality. Really.
It's just
Oh,
super
I mean-
nuanced. The conception of the mental disease versus disorder versus disability versus dysfunction versus impairment versus syndrome versus malady. All these different terms. Like there's literally a dozen different terms that you can use because it's so mysterious.
Uh-huh.
Because it's such a subjective and phenomenological thing. It's so
Some of it
it's
is.
so
Some of it.
pers-
Like my cousin,
perspective. You
is
can't-
full
you can't
retarded.
talk
Like he
electricity.
can't talk. He can't do nothing. Like that guy, he's like older than me. Has never been by himself
Yeah.
a day in his life. Like that
Right.
person
But
has
even
no.
then, you could say that you want to encourage him to be his best self. However, that's
Oh,
possible.
definitely. I mean, obviously,
that's where
people
you-
do their best, but I'm just saying, like someone like him can't actually fathomly think about like the things that we're thinking about and talking about, like the morality and shit, mean nothing to him. Because he can't even fathom the thought of
Right.
anything. So I'm just saying, like even with that thought process, there's still always going to be people and things that don't fit that one for one. or like not perfect box, I guess, or you want to call it.
Right. So their
Well,
physiological
they're not going
needs
to be.
would-
They're not
that
going
would be
okay.
more
So they're not
like
going to
they would
be
need more help.
participants or users of a moral system, but they're going to be beneficiaries of a
Yes,
moral
they
system.
would be. Yes, they're. I guess for
Right.
them,
They
they
need
want to have
more-
something that represents their needs the best that they could do, or for their
Mhm.
benefits. I guess. Yeah, I get that totally.
And we want to help them because of empathy. Because
Yep,
if
we
we
should.
leave them behind, it makes us feel like fucking shit. As it
It should.
basically should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, dude, you shouldn't fucking be like,
So
oh, you're
they're,
retarded, you're dead, like legitly, or whatever,
right, like back in the day or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
dude.
that's kind
Jesus
of
Christ.
the way that it works here in the U.S. I mean, the medical healthcare system is in
I know.
shambles, and the expectation for people just to figure out based on free will, this assumption of individual sovereignty and individual ability and accountability is way over exaggerated on the political right, and yet that's also what's very much needed in psychology. So a lot of the left-leaning education systems are avoiding talking about that, and that's kind of a broad generalization, but that does seem to be the case in both pop psychology and in clinical academic psychoanalysis. We're afraid to touch on the victim blaming. We're afraid to assume that people have these shared capacities and abilities. But I mean, in my opinion, they need to be taught. Everybody has them to some degree, some more than others, but the majority of people have some kind of free will and ability to transcend their past self, to continue in a growth mindset, and continue to become new versions of themselves. We just have to activate those abilities, and it takes more patience and dedication for some more than others. And this is also where it gets very muddy, because that mission may last for over a decade. It may even be it really is a whole lifelong experience of just testing your limits and putting yourself into uncomfortable situations, unfamiliar scenarios, and trying to find the boundaries of your capacities.
Yeah.
But we got to find them. So I mean, this is what Brandon's saying. We talked about this too. Is we're trying to do this with the Polymath Park group currently, and it's tricky. Just trying to find what are the abilities that we have genetically, what the Homo sapien and the Homo erectus and hunter-gatherer, all the abilities that they probably have, and everyone should have, at least at a functional level. SANS syndrome, if you have syndromes, if you have TBIs and other, like, we got to categorize all of those too, but it would be what are the abilities that we have and what are the natural setbacks and ways that the brain can indeed become dysfunctional. So one example I use is the refrigerator. The refrigerator has been around for thousands of years. So I like to make a joke. What does a dog and a squirrel and a pirate all have in common?
A dog, a squirrel, and a pirate. They're all mammals.
Treasure.
Oh, buried treasure. I would say they're all mammals.
They all like buried treasure.
That's a tertiary definition rather than a analytic or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's the idea that this is so deeply ingrained, like food preservation and resource accountability. Your ability to, I should be careful using the word resource, but your ability to stay aware and take account of your food. That's probably deeply set into us. That's probably hundreds of thousands of years old. We were doing it in the tundras, in the frozen snow. We would store fish as natural refrigerators. And literally dogs and squirrels and other species do this too. So when I see my friend who has forgotten the food in their fridge, and they say, "Well, yeah, I have ADHD and I'm too distracted,"
That's not.
and that just happens. That's just part of me. That's probably wrong.
I think so
I
too.
would say that's probably an ability that we all have, is to keep account of what's in our fridge.
Yeah. Plus,
But has society created that distractibility? You can also blame that on society.
Ooh,
Overstimulation.
I'm gonna guess there's been people like that forever. I'm not sure, but just guessing. The scatterbrain person, or I guess you want to call
I
them.
posed this question before, so like
Right.
we're basically delving into like the problem of like what things do we share, like the problem of universal versus individual identity. I would say subjective and
Capacities,
objective
like brain
identity.
capacities. Or the abilities that we all should be able to have.
There's like
Mindfulness is
abilities and
one.
there's preferences, right?
Yeah, and individual personality preferences versus better conceptions of the self and
An
skills that you can
ability.
acquire.
So like ability and
Everyone-
preference would both be two different ways in which a behavior does not occur, right? Or does or does not occur. Right? Two different limiting factors, preference and ability.
I think I see what you mean.
Preference and ability.
Yeah.
Whether we will do something or won't.
I mean, people have been distracted forever, like being scatterbrained. That's probably related to the monkey mind that the Buddhists talked about thousands of years ago. I want to say that we all have the capacity to, like, you could look at it biologically. Our 35 trillion cells all have it in their prerogative to be accounting for their own resources or their own food sources and have a good conception of that. And then us humans up at the top of this meat machine, we're swayed from that. Like, we have to take account of all those 35 trillion cells, and we also have to take account of our taxes and our children and our pets and our bills and what we want to do versus what we need to do. So there are priorities at play there that may become subjugated, if that's the right word. They may become compromised by the society that we're in that's extremely overstimulating and distracting us from, I mean, we're in a consumer society, so it's a throwaway culture where indeed that affects our ability to have, or it affects our mindfulness in general and our mindfulness of what's in our fridge. But I'd like to say that if I was going to feel strongly about defending this idea of mindfulness as a capacity, that's an example that I would use, that everyone should be able to relearn how to take better account of what's in their fridge and not blame it on ADHD, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I feel like it's almost like instead of having a partial account of what's in the fridge, they're just like, yeah, I can't do that. You know, they're just like, you know, it obviously the fridge is a metaphor, but
Dude, how about this? Even if
Yeah.
you have a mental
Well, I
disorder,
mean,
you should
quite
try your
literally,
best to live.
just don't
right?
have. Absolutely. If
to
you
live your best.
you
yeah.
should care about your quality of life and thus do what you can to fucking
Yeah.
make it better. Like it's
Right, and everybody can keep track of what's in their fridge. It's
Yeah,
just they're
yeah.
probably distracted by society's overstimulating crap.
In today's
I mean,
world,
having a real need though, like people struggle with diet too,
Uh-huh.
and having Crohn's disease, I've realized I'm a little privileged with my Crohn's disease because that forces me to take better account of my diet. Whereas other people are in the consumer culture and they're pushed to eat fast food and they can kind of use their bodies as machines to consume, which is what I did before I was diagnosed with Crohn's, and it probably led to it in general, or at least contributed to it in some ways.
what is it like when a Crohn's flare up happens? Like you
It's
get,
like hell.
digestion. It's
like hell.
Okay, yeah, it's like hell.
It's
I would
ulcers in
never
your
downplay it.
intestines. It's
Oh,
inflamed
yeah.
ulcers in the intestines that, when the food rubs against the ulcers, it creates incredible pain to the point that I cannot speak and I cannot move.
Oh my god, it's like fucking Ron Swanson and the fucking Parks and Rec thing where he's got a fucking hernia. He doesn't want to move. He doesn't want to speak.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's pretty bad. Fortunately haven't had those kind of experiences in a few years though, because I got all my shit straight. And I was talking about this with somebody tonight. Like, what I've realized, man, it's not even the medication that's most beneficial here. The medication will help you heal from severe, like abscesses. I've had horrible abscesses that I had to have operated on, and medication helped with that. But when it comes to not having flare-ups triggered, that's mindfulness, that's stress management, and that's exercise.
Ah.
It's
Yeah, dude,
even,
I'm
even
trying to.
less so than diet. Like, I can actually eat what I want, pretty much whatever I want, if I'm exercising regularly for many hours a day, and I'm practicing mindfulness to catch stress before it arises.
Yeah, I'm trying to fucking accept more like I've meditated like a good amount in my life, but I've never really felt like it's the answer to my problems, you know, like, or like just de-stressing in general. I think I've always thought like I need stress or whatever, or just some sort of excitement or some fuel to fucking push me in life, but I don't think that's true anymore. I think it's more like, You know, if you create space in your head for things to take shape, you know, they fucking will. And if you're not like constantly, if you don't have these emotions or like desire to like impress people or whatever, you know, like in any sense. Well, I've always known that that's a bad thing, but like if you in any sense are reliant on another's opinion of you
Well,
at all.
pressure is different from stress, and having deadlines is really helpful too. So the pressure of a deadline, but also we say like the ADHD crowd today at least will say that they have to wait till the last minute to get anything done. They have to wait till the day of the test to do the studying, or they have to wait till the morning to do your homework to turn to the teacher. And that also is not true. I want to say that everyone has a capacity to motivate themselves. I do like the word affect though, and I think that affect is the neurological or neurobiological conception of affect, as in stimulus. That can be thought of as a looping process where you're getting dopamine, self-motivated dopamine that affects you reciprocally and internally, and not necessarily exogenously and externally.
I've always
I'm
seen
trying to come
affect
up.
as an emotional
Okay.
term, but that's all I'm saying. I've always seen it as an emotional term, but it makes
Yeah,
sense.
there's
Everything's
different ways
emotional,
to use
really.
that term.
Yeah, like positive affect, you know, or negative affect. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the. I want to try to find another term, and I'm working with this idea. Like I've been using the term mentally disordered states to insinuate less permanence, but I also am trying to think of this as self-reciprocating. What is it? So it's self-reciprocating loops of negative effect. So
Self-reciprocating. Oh, okay.
that's
So it's like self-reciproc. So it's like rumination, basically.
right, rumination. But also, I think this applies to all of mental, what we think of as mental disorders, where that applies. You can still use mindfulness in that, and you can still overcome with that. But it shows that this is more, or insinuates that it's more neurobiological in nature as well. It's a something that your brain, because your brain gets stuck in loops as a way of speaking, but it can't get stuck in permanent loops. That then you really would be a fully deterministic meat machine. Then you would be completely automatic, robotic, and not having any sense of choice.
All right.
So we get into rumination's a great example of that. Uh, Hyperfixating and over planning. Like I used to do this before I learned CBT. I would try to predict and imagine all of the theoretical arguments I would get into with my relationship with my partner, and I would just imagine her saying this, and then I would respond to that, and then she'd say this, and I would.
I've,
That's crazy. Like that's such a horrible way to
I've
live.
done that with
And
people.
so
I've done that.
that's
Like
exactly
whenever,
I
that.
think a lot of
yeah,
people have done that.
yeah.
Yeah, it seems very
At least
common.
thinkers. At
Because
least
it's
I don't
it's
know.
like that. Because well, here's the thing: is people aren't patient. You know, people aren't. Well, like, because you're in a fucking situation where you're not really like as fucking what's the word I fucking literally just had it. You're not as persistent as you could be, or like, or that you know, because you imagine the worst scenario, right? So then you're like, oh, whatever, you know, like in the situation when you're like arguing in your head, you imagine the worst possible response, or the one response that gets through the holes of your argument or whatever, and then you're just like, oh, fuck it, you know, or whatever in your imagined
Yeah.
situation.
That's also depression, though, and the loops of negative affect where they self-reinforce themselves, and the effects of that is what's felt as most salient to you. You're being affected by that, but you need not be beholden to that,
Hmm.
and
Have
that's
you
yeah.
have you looked into splitting at all? Like Melanie Klein splitting, like
Splitting what?
good
Like
breast, bad breast?
bipolar.
No, splitting. It's like a psychoanalytic term. Like so like for instance, when like the mother is feeding the child, they look at it as the good breast. It's all good. This is
Oh
her
yeah,
terminology. It's not the best analogy in
I know
my
what you're
opinion.
talking about.
But then when the breast is, you know, put away or whatever, the mom doesn't want you to fucking, you know, suck on the tit. It's suddenly the bad breast, you know? Like so people in a sense split in a like so when they're having a hard time with people in general, or like a certain person or a couple people or whatever, they'll think like all people are bad, you know. So there's that level of splitting from like all good to all bad, and then there's idealization is basically the all good position, and then all bad is devaluation. So like that's what people with BPD do, is they split. That's one of their main things they do.
Right. That seems like the most common logical fallacy is black and white thinking or absolutism.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And
So
they
that's
think
definitely overcome by mindfulness. Everybody can
Right.
have a capacity to overcome that. And so attributing that as the primary aspect of bipolar disorder is probably very counterproductive. That
So
doesn't
she thinks
insinuate
that,
that this is a temporary
uh,
experience. It insinuates that this is because I have bipolar disorder, this is the person that I am, that I must split. Like
Oh
because I have
no, BPD, not bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder.
or sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My bad.
Oh, you're good. What else? I think that's basically it as far as splitting goes. Well, it would be an unconscious reaction, right? Not a, yeah. So, I
Right.
guess
The whole
when it
process
comes,
is making it more conscious.
yeah. So I guess when it comes to psychoanalysis, like it identifies things that are unconscious, like unconscious reactions. Like transference, fucking projection, splitting. I don't know how much else you can put into there. And then I would say vanilla psychology is more like studying processes like emotion, cognition, and various social phenomena. But that's just one division I would offer as far as like what differentiates psychology and psychoanalysis.
Yeah. We've talked about that distinction before. At least the way I think about it is that psychology is just the whole field, and then psychoanalysis is what you do in the clinic when you're analyzing the client.
But then, okay, so
But there's certainly vanilla psychology,
there
like
is
what you're
there
talking
is
about.
so like psychoanalysis is a field. That's the thing.
Well, there's different conceptions in all these terms. Like we used to
Kind of
attribute
weird.
psychoanalysis solely to Freudian psychoanalysis, and whenever anybody
Yeah.
used that term, they thought Freud. But now that's also
Mhm.
differently thought of.
Yeah, Freud's fucking weird. Well, I think he was really smart as well, though. Like I saw him on like some list of like most overrated people in the last like or throughout history, and I don't think he's overrated. I think he just had some weird ideas that became the focal point of his identity, like the Oedipus complex, that probably shouldn't have been the focal point. So like even the death instinct, I think, is really smart. That's something I've evoked a bit lately.
Yeah, that's Becker. Ernest Becker got into
Oh,
that.
that's not even
Sheldon
Freud.
Solomon. Oh, so Freud talked on it too, but Ernest Becker did more work in that regard, I believe. Very
Oh,
depressing. Read The Denial of Death. That book, holy shit, dude. The Denial of Death, I have it over on my freaking keyboard.
oh, okay.
It's
Yeah, I would love to read that.
it's
See, I
very
wish you lived by us. Then you could fucking borrow me books and shit. Like I got Consciousness
you can get it for
Explained.
like $3 online. It's super cheap for
Oh,
Free
yeah.
Dara, bro. Free Dara.
$3. $3.50. You want to play some Brawl and continue?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we can play. Yeah.
I got my
Controller
book.
plugged in still,
Freaking,
hopefully.
I don't have too much time anyway, so I want to do a little bit of this before making dinner. Yeah, man, Freud. I was listening to Jung, man. I've been neglecting getting into Jung because it's so deep and also mysterious.
Yeah, let
And
me
I'm
know
very
what
worried.
you come up with that's fucking worthy. Just
We're not
fucking
worthy.
drop it in the chat or something. You brought up something earlier. I forgot what it was regarding him.
Yeah, I'll make a category in the Discord server, which I've also been neglecting a lot lately. It's like a freaking desert right now. But
Oh
Jung
yeah.
is, dude, he's so deep. He has so much work. He's a prolific thinker,
Yep.
and he
He's
He also has religious aspects, and I'm wary of that. So I'm always keeping an open ear open for how he overuses those concepts. But the dream analysis seems very useful and also very neglected today. it's thrown into the guru category. A lot of the gurus and the psychic readers will also call themselves dream analysts, and that tends to be where that goes. But we know that hypnotherapy and those approaches are very sound, and so is dream analysis. It's just more subjective and it's more nuanced. It seems that it applies to people that have dreams regularly, at least. That seems to be
I don't have dreams.
one requirement for that.
I do, but
Yeah, we all smoke weeds. That'll probably.
even as a
like
kid,
the collective unconscious is something that's that was always a thing that bothered me
yeah.
with Jung, but like, and
But his
there's
ideas
another
are
reason why I've been doing the fucking weird like quantum fucking ideas and fucking entanglement and shit, like exploring that. So I'm wondering
are
if
you
there's
being
something
Dora
there.
the Explorer?
In a sense, yeah.
It is
As
that.
far as exploring weird metaphysics.
Yeah, quantum world's really weird. We got a long way to
Yep.
go before we understand that too. So I'm very wary
think
of that application in psychology. I like the middle ground of CBT and of the internal family systems therapy, ACT, and the acceptance-based practices. This is where I try to use the quintuple A model, where a lot of our approaches boil down to these categories of taking action, which is CBT and Eastern mindfulness, and acceptance, which is Eastern as well, accepting what you can't change and forming relationships with your emotions, and the abandonment and moving to another place if you need to move, or abandoning particular relationships but never fully cutting people out of your life,
Mm.
and the what is activism and the avoidance, which is that's really tricky. That's not one that should ever be engaged. Is avoiding your problems by taking medication or just escapism and all that. And the biopsychosocial, or there's the biologic perspective and biologically, or in behavioral perspective, I should say. So you're the biology and of your behavior, and then the emotion focused therapies, and the cognitive focused therapies, and the social therapies, or these social awareness based action oriented approaches to therapy. That's the
Yeah.
Beck's model. And those seem to be applicable to most people. And then you can like form the philosophies around those, but also searching for new ones. I think there's a new one that's forming right now around story focused therapy, or SFT as I'm calling it, and where that tries to bridge between action and acceptance. And I have a really good meme on this too, but yeah, I'll bring that up later.
Yeah. I've been working on the whole like I've done a lot of thinking relating to like the quantum and mind connection, and like relating like and like comparing the relationship between quantum and classical to like the relationship between mind and brain, and it's a long fucking rabbit hole. And I don't even know how fucking much I've plotted out, like as far as arguments go. It's a lot. And then you have a lot of people out there, like, you know, gurus or shit, you know, and all this other shit, you know, making relationships a quantum, and then it appears as fucking woo woo. So it's also like, oh, am I just pursuing this because I want it to be true? Like, even so, even if I want it to be true, but I'm able to prove it or whatever, provide good arguments, you know, that's a good thing. So I do think not allowing various like labels and like potential judgments from others, as well as not letting yourself be affected in ways that others would be concerned about you being effective, as, like in so far as like letting your objectivity lapse in favor of chasing an idea, you know, like I do think it's good to chase crazy ideas, but you have to be objective.
Yeah, because you never know what you'll find.
Yep.
This is what
And
Carlos does too.
I made the points in the chat earlier. Well, I didn't make the point, but I asked the question. Like, off the back of believing in false ideas, or how many of our truths have come out of that? I think that's a decent question.
This is what Jung was saying in the book. It's
Shit.
2 essays on the personality. And Adler, and how they went very deep into their fields, and that may have come at the nuances, at the sacrifice of the complexities. So you can really get into death anxiety as the main problem, or Adler's models, and this is where I like Yalom, and I like the existential psychotherapist, because they're trying to get all of these in play. So the existential psychotherapists use combinations of the existential givens of life, and I really need to read more of this too, but the idea is that there are indeed these categories that come up as existential givens that we have to deal with in one way or another, that we can't create medications for, certainly not, and we must create therapy models for, or really counseling models for is a better term there. Like death anxiety, that's a big one. Meaninglessness, that's John Vervaeke, he's got that covered with the whole Awakening from the Meaning Crisis series. Isolation, the fact that you never truly touch anyone, and that you're caught in your own brain, and that you have to exercise theory of mind to understand what's going on in other people's brains. And you can never, we're not a Borg, we're separate identities, but we're also very embedded in distributed cognition and extended in cognitive science terms. And we're also freedom overwhelmed. Like, we all have to deal with the fact that we're practically in our freedom abilities to choose multiple paths.
So going back to culture, like, how much is okay? So there is a natural morality in a sense, like that is central to culture, and those are things that are, that we are. I don't want to say entangled, but like, what's a better word than entangled for like not actually entangled? We are intertwined through.
We're embedded. Use the cognitive science terms. We're embedded in the culture.
Dictates. But yeah,
extended.
That's one way that, like the pre-existing morality that we already have is the way that we can, that is a connection that we have in general.
Absolutely.
And then we have to, then morality only evolves through like a pragmatic analysis, basically. I feel like, if it's not pragmatic, what the fuck's the point? Like, there's no way to prove an absolute morality. Like, you can't prove that any action-based or object-based morality, like the object of your actions, like you can't prove that any of that's right or wrong, but you can prove that it's the way it affects the collective and then eventually affects you.
Right.
All
right, let's play this game. Let's play a game. Come on, y'all. Let's join in.
God damn.
The room number is 909-288. Or 909-228. Yeah, the
228.
Wait, 099?
Yeah,
909.
90. 228. Yeah, freaking this is a huge topic. I mean, culture, I was talking about this at the meeting earlier too. We don't know what American culture is. So a big factor here that's extremely hard to definitively empirically prove is the problem of the lack of culture in America. So we say American culture.
Mm-hmm.
American culture is basically apple pie, baseball, and hot dogs. And that's what we have here. That's the deep set cultural connection that we have, is that, and like really shitty rap and some really good rap and really good metal and punk. And I like good metal and good rap, and punk too. But the problem is we're very new and we don't have a cultural conception of how to manage mutual suffering, or how to manage psychological problems that are connected to our and
Josh.
extended cells.
Well, the government has
And,
caused a lot of it in general, but yeah, like throughout history.
Oh, sure. I mean, so for example, when you look at the book Crazy Like Us, The Globalization of the American Psyche, this is a really good book. I highly recommend it. It is exploring the ways that America has exported its version of psychology out to the world. So, for example, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has they're a very old country, very old culture. They have a their culture and their role in it. And so they got hit by a tsunami in 2004, and they've been hit by many tsunamis, and they have a good understanding of how to describe the impacts of that. And many of the words that they use to describe those impacts involve mutual suffering, or that we're going through this together and we're going to recover as a community. And so in the U.S., that's very different. In the U.S., it's very individualist.
Fucking bastards.
In the U.S., it's more about individual suffering because we don't have that connection. So, for instance, we went over to in 2004 after the freaking tsunami, we went over to Sri Lanka with a couple thousand therapists, American.
I remember this.
trained
Yeah.
therapists. You know what I'm talking about? So we gave them our knowledge or our understanding of PTSD and trauma-focused therapies, and we actually fucked them up. We actually made their situation worse because now they have all these new terms that make them hyper paranoid about how their individualism or how their individual experience of trauma is to be prioritized as opposed to their sense of connection and community, which is already deeply established. So there's multiple problems there with that. Like it corrupted their
Like as far as identity, like what do you mean?
yeah.
Ooh.
What'd you say? Oh,
Well, it's like they had so like okay. So I remember when he was talking about this before. So they had their own system for dealing with shit, for suffering
Right.
beforehand. And I don't know. That was
Is
my
it kind of
thinking,
like introducing like a westernized type of way of like a coping mechanism? Maybe I don't know.
yeah, absolutely. And so it had a couple effects. It
Josh
made
is
them
my cousin, by the way. He's
Hi.
What's
What's up,
that
Josh?
guy? Just
Hi,
kidding.
what's
What's
up?
up, brother?
What's up?
I need a Corona right now.
Right now, you already know bar slide stat full send, motherfucker.
Right? That's funny.
Ooh.
Well, hi to everybody. Hi.
What's happening,
What's up,
brother?
hey.
Shit, you know, just waiting for the right moment to save my like 0.5% maybe.
You gotta. I feel like you gotta fucking tune your like ability.
It's a mental exercise, dude. It's a mental.
Well, it's like your
exercise.
interpretation. It's your interpretation. So it's
Right,
like if
right.
he says no, then you can be like, oh,
Okay,
then he can
so that's
explain.
kinda like- Okay, so you have an inner voice, like always in the back of your head, right? There's always something talking in the back of your head. But what does that actually sound like? Does that sound like when you speak, or is it
Yep.
like a different like version of yourself in the back of your head that sounds different versus how you speak?
The
You know what I mean?
Sound?
So, like,
You mean the sound or like?
Yeah, when you
I
when
I
you
think
hear
it's
the
like
voice.
in the mouth. So I think
right, you hear the voice, but how is it supposed to be interpreted? Is what I'm
Some
saying.
people
Like,
do it.
amalgamation.
There's tests on this too. Some people have a very rich inner monologue. Sometimes people call it a dialogue, and then some
dialogue,
people
yeah.
report
Like
not
an inner
having any
dialogue,
inner voice
you know?
at all. Some
Right.
people
Yep.
say that they don't have, and I don't more emotion based, but
Or like
Yeah, it's
Just
definitely emotion based, but
embedded?
I think it's also like biologically based too, because it's like how do you actually like perceive the way you were taught to know life?
cognitive style that might have
You know,
just.
like you know, it could be. Who knows?
Oh, immersion died. How the fuck? Oh, dude,
Yeah,
the word got tossed.
yeah.
Immersion
Josh, you
based?
might be able to play this with us. I think on your
What?
on your Xbox.
on your
we
Where
do
just
you have a
play?
PlayStation? Do you have a PlayStation or Xbox? I forget.
Yeah, I got
Use the
PS5.
PlayStation.
Yeah. Yeah, this is
What
free.
is it?
You can play this with us. Brawlhalla.
Brawlhalla.
Ooh,
Okay.
get out of here.
I'm actually on my PS5 right now. Let me look into it. I gotta go into the store, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be
Okay.
free.
I mean, you can just dodges down.
Oh, duh. to. I always have to go into the store. I don't know why.
Be a piece of shit this whole time. Oh no, got me.
Bro, like bro.
Dude, this is so cheap.
Yeah, it sure is. But it is legal.
Mm,
And that's definitely the conservative way.
What's more
This
conservative than
capitalist
Thor?
rules in the law, and therefore I'll take advantage of them, and I'll
yeah.
have a monopoly. All right, that's
No, that's not what I wanted to do. I gotta win.
Yeah. So the Sri Lankans were fucked up in multiple ways. So they became hyper paranoid, or hypochondriac is the term, and they were using PTSD to describe their individual experiences, and it also fucked up their cultural conception of mutual suffering, where we're in this together and we're all going to recover together. And there's other factors at play too. It's just it's so delicate, and we're extremely fuck.
Uh,
Whatever. We're extremely overconfident with the ways that we think about psychology, but it's only the 21st century, and we still have a long way to go.
I mean, we're only scratching the surface of what's
Uh,
possible, like fuck.
Like,
right.
what if psychoanalysis is just, yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Off
that's
the
like
charts, like it's
as
so
like
crazy,
a
yeah.
it's like a study of unconscious reactions. Maybe that's like our way of establishing
And
a
define unconscious.
psychology fucking inhibited by quote unquote meta psychology, but I don't know if that's. I mean, I don't know. I have to fucking hash that concept out to see if it has any validity more. But
Oh, the metacognition aspect is huge. That's mindfulness.
right. Well, I was just saying meta psychology as it's like a
Oh,
specific
sorry.
or just like
Oh,
biases and like the way that we establish and like practice psychology. I would say. I don't know.
I mean, this is philosophy
like
of psychology. This
study.
is what Jung was doing. This is what. Well, the problem is that people get so caught in their own ideas, like we were just talking about, and so even Jung fell for this, where he was an incredible orator and incredibly good at explicating and really using the right words to describe his ideas, and he was so good at prose and so
Yep.
good at just incredibly different, or incredibly broad range of describing his ideas, and also very nuanced. But also, he didn't really examine
I didn't want to do
the
that.
philosophy of psychology like the way Thomas Cezanne did, or well, Cezanne is caught in his own narrative with the freaking anti-psychiatry abolitionism or whatever, where he was kind of conservative, but also very concerned with the fact that people are being manipulated by psychologists and psychiatrists in a mental institution.